It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak calls for restraint on all sides in the Middle East. Iran launched hundreds of missiles and drones at Israel on Saturday night. Israel's war cabinet met today, reportedly discussing plans to hurt Iran without causing an all-out war. Coming up, we'll go live to Jerusalem to get the latest from my colleague Yalda Hakim. Also tonight, a fresh round of parliamentary ping-pong over the Rwanda plan. MPs are due to vote later this hour, with the government seeking to undo the defeat in the House of Lords before Easter. We'll be live inside the Houses of Parliament. Plus, on the 35th anniversary of the Hillsborough disaster, we'll be discussing tragedy chants at football matches. That's singing songs about events like Hillsborough or the Munich air crash to get a reaction from opposing fans. It's on the rise. And a suspected tornado hits Staffordshire. We'll be hearing from the residents rocked by high winds this morning. All that's come and much more here on the UK Tonight. Well, we begin tonight with an update on events in the Middle East. This follows Iran's unprecedented attack on Israel over the weekend. Today, Rishi Sunak urged all sides to show restraint. But he told MPs the UK stands with Israel. This is after Tehran launched more than 300 drones and missiles on Saturday. That was the response to the attack on the Iranian consulate in Syria earlier this month. The world now waits to see how Israel will react. Its war cabinet did meet today and reportedly discuss ways to hurt Iran without provoking an all-out war. Our international correspondent Alex Rossi has our first report this evening.
Israel and its allies may have taken out the Iranian missiles and drones, but this crisis is far from over. We filmed the interception above Jerusalem on Saturday as sirens wailed. And there's pressure from some members of the Israeli government to respond aggressively, to show this unprecedented attack has serious consequences. The country's war cabinet has met again for the third time in 48 hours. Several retaliatory options were reportedly discussed.
This base is still operational around the clock. The IDF is altogether still ready to protect the state of Israel. We are preparing and following any developments.
But Iran says after its operation for the consulate airstrike, the matter is concluded. They are warning if Israel does attack, they will hit back.
The Islamic Republic of Iran is not seeking to escalate tensions in the region. Our advice to all supporters of the criminal Zionist regime is to appreciate Iran's responsible and measured act and dissuade the Zionist regime from committing more wicked acts.
Israel then faces a dilemma. Its security policy is founded on showing strength, do nothing, and the danger is looking weak in a region where hard power often wins the day. Whilst it's still not clear what will be Israel's response, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is under pressure from allies to show restraint. The danger is of a cycle of retaliation that escalates into a full-blown regional war. The country's military, though, says it is keeping all options on the table, and that includes both defensive and offensive actions. In the House of Commons, Rishi Sunak emphasised the need to step back from the brink.
We are working urgently with our allies to de-escalate the situation and prevent further bloodshed. We want to see calmer heads prevail, and we are directing all our diplomatic efforts to that end.
For Israelis, this is an anxious time. Since Saturday, more people have been coming forward to donate blood. There is a sense of national emergency and a need to do something.
Saturday night was something very, very new because there was a certain sense of vulnerability for a few hours until our faith in our army paid off and the Air Force. But yeah, these are difficult times.
As Israel grapples with how to respond to Iran, it is still fighting on two other fronts. This is a dangerous moment for the entire Middle East. And at present, there is no clear way out of this crisis. Alex Rossi, Sky News, Jerusalem.
Well, let's get more now on what's happening in the region. My colleague Yalda Hakim is in Jerusalem for us tonight. Yalda.
Thanks so much, SJ. Well, as Alex Rossi was saying there in his piece, this crisis is far from over. It is incredibly tense, not just here in Israel, but across the region as the world waits and watches to see what Israel's next move is. And the ball is firmly now in Israel's court. Well, let's discuss this further with our international affairs editor, Dominic Waghorn, who joins me here now. And Dom, as Alex was saying, we've been discussing all day. This is a dangerous moment. The ball is in Israel's court, and the big question is what happens next?
Yeah, all eyes are on Israel, and there's an intense debate underway here, which is basically summed up with the question to take the win or to strike back. There are those on the right, largely, the hawkish end of Israeli politics, people like former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, who tweeted this last night: "You don't win wars just by intercepting your enemy's hits, nor do you deter it. How do you deter? By exacting a deeply painful price." So for those politicians and those are advocating something similar in the media, Israel cannot rely on coalition members. You know, Israel was founded on the idea that Jews can't rely on others to protect themselves. They have to protect themselves in a way that deters the enemy from trying again. And therefore, the argument being made by Bennett and others is that what's required is something immediate and something really painful to make the Iranians never do this again. There are those, though, on the other wing of Israeli society and politics who are saying we should take the win, and the wins are multiple. One is that they struck this consulate, killing a number of Iranian commanders, that there is this coalition of Arab states and Western states, and the fear, I think, after October the 7th was that sort of normalisation process that we had seen in the region was in serious jeopardy. And what we saw on Saturday was a concerted effort by a number of Arab states who are normalising relations, supporting and protecting Israel in the sense of giving early warning systems, letting Israeli jets use their airspace, in some cases shooting down missiles. Now, if you strike Iran and go solo, then you jeopardise that process. That's the argument being made. But also, if you play a longer game, you're keeping the Iranians guessing, you're keeping your powder dry. So that is an intense debate, and we've seen the War Cabinet meeting 3 times now. Clearly, they haven't decided. The impression we're getting from unnamed sources, you have to say, so it's no real certainty, but the impression we're getting is that a decision is being sort of headed towards, which is to take some kind of action. So it's not a question of if, it's a question of when and what. And I think the outcome of that decision really will determine the immediate state of stability in the region. I think what they will aim for, if they do decide on action, is a kind of Goldilocks option. Not so hot it plunges the region into all-out war, which is the fear, that the threat that's really exercising minds around the world, but not so cold that it doesn't teach the Iranians a lesson. Now, that sounds sort of fine in talking about it here or on paper, but treading that line, it's a path fraught with peril. It would be very hard to do effectively, and I think that sort of explains to some extent why the Israelis are taking some time now to plot their next move.
Yeah, I mean, and not to mention the pressure from their staunchest of allies saying we support you, but be careful what you do next, because they are avoiding all-out war. Dom, thanks so much. Let's go to the United States now and speak with our Mark Stone, who's at the Pentagon. And Mark, I'm just speaking here with Dom about all the options that Israel might now have, but we've continued to hear throughout the day, frankly, for the last 48 hours, President Biden saying, see this as a win, take the win, don't allow this to escalate into all-out war. No one wants to see a conflict with Iran that, frankly, the United States would be dragged into as well.
Yes, and the different parts of that win just outlined there by Dominic. I think one of the most interesting aspects of what we've seen play out with this Iranian attack on Israel is the argument which we saw prior to it happening about whether or not Iran might choose an option, a form of attack on Israel which will allow them to save face, if you like, but would not provoke an Israeli response. Something that was a show, something that was strategically accurate, that would not cause casualties. Well, I think given what we saw on Saturday night, yes, it didn't cause any casualties apart from one young girl in the Negev, but it was of such an extraordinary scale that it could easily have caused huge casualties. The argument the Americans are putting forward, and we heard it from John Kirby at the White House a few moments ago, is that be in no doubt, in the Americans' view and in the Israelis' view, this attack was intended to be successful. It was, in their words, spectacularly unsuccessful, but that was only down to the coalition of air forces that brought down these drones. I think that really changes the dynamic. It presents a case which the Israelis have put forward for a long time, that Iran wants war. Iran wants to wipe Israel off the map, and that Saturday night was evidence of that, and it was only because of the success of the coalition that they failed, which then leads you on to the argument that many Israelis are making: why don't we strike back? We have to strike back. And that's where the American argument gets a little bit complicated. And it certainly is the case, I think you could argue, that Iran has managed to re-establish its own form of deterrence. It may not have been successful, but it proved it was able to fly drones and ballistic missiles. That surprised the White House, ballistic missiles into Israeli airspace. And I put that idea of Iranian deterrence to the State Department spokesperson a short while ago.
Is it not the fact they were able to do it largely unsuccessfully, does that not, for them, give them some sense of deterrence, of re-establishing their own deterrence, which is a problem, is it not, for Israel and America?
So you can make all sorts of arguments, but at the end of the day, I'm going to look at the results. And the results that we were able to achieve with Israel, yes, in part through our preparation, in part through our decades-long security agreements and security cooperation, is that we were able to repel that attack, and only a very small number of them succeeded. Ultimately, though, I think the point that I made continues to stand, is that we're going to continue to work to hold Iran accountable.
Those on the more hard-line side of politics here in America would certainly agree with those in Israel that believe that if you do not strike back, if they do not strike back against Iran now, then it is an appeasement of Iran and they will only do it again. And remember, they have control of Hezbollah in Lebanon, and their missiles are much, much closer to Israel, much harder to shoot down.
Mark, we'll let you get out of the rain. Thank you so much for all of your analysis there. That was Mark Stone speaking to us from the Pentagon in Virginia. Well, we'll be back in the next 45 minutes for a special on my show, The World with Yalda Hakim, at 9 p.m. We'll be speaking with the exiled Crown Prince of Iran, Reza Pahlavi, as well as the deputy spokesperson of the Pentagon. So do stay with us and join us for that. For now, SJ, back to you.
Yalda, thank you so much. We'll see you at 9 o'clock. We're going to stay with the situation in the Middle East. I'm joined here in the studio by Dr. David Waring, lecturer in international relations at the University of Sussex. And David, good to see you. Thank you for coming in to talk to us, because everybody was keeping a close eye on what was happening in Israel today and the cabinet meeting, but also the Prime Minister standing up in Parliament today, speaking for the first time about the UK's involvement at the weekend in taking out some of those drones, explaining why and defending the UK's decision. The big question, I guess, is how much is the UK going to get involved in this latest episode of the Middle East conflict? And I guess we can't know that until we know what Israel's going to do.
Yeah, I mean, the message seems to be, and it seems to be quite a coordinated message, from the Americans, from the British, from the French, saying to Israel, we're not with you if you go ahead and attack Iran now. We'll help you to defend yourself, as we did just now, when Iran attacks you. But in terms of a proactive attack on Iran, we're not with you on that. We want to draw a line under it here. Apparently, Biden told the Israelis, take the win. You hit the consulate in Damascus. You took out a few of their leading figures in the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. They tried to hit you back and didn't really do much damage. Take the win. And I think that message is being echoed by the British and the French. So I suspect as long as the Israelis don't attack Iran directly in that kind of way, then there's not going to be any British involvement, assuming the British stick with the Americans.
Yeah, how likely does that seem? Because we are hearing on Sky News tonight that, you know, there is a plan to hurt Iran without provoking an all-out war. How likely is that?
Yeah, I mean, there's things that the Iranians can do which the Israelis can do, which don't hit back Iran in quite as escalatory or a direct way, but which is still a response. They could hit Iranian assets in Syria, they could hit Iranian assets in Lebanon. it would be quite a step to carry out a big assault, say, on Iranian nuclear facilities without the backing of the British and the Americans. So, but at the same time, the Israelis, particularly Netanyahu, have got this incentive, keep all this going, and Netanyahu stays in power. So it's hard to say which way they'll go.
And what underpins all of this is, of course, what is unfolding in Gaza. And there is a big consensus that what is going on in Gaza has to stop.
Yeah.
Israel showed no sign of giving into that international pressure, even from their allies at the moment. So how does that feed into what is happening with Iran? Can one be stopped without the other?
No, I mean, all these things are tied together. This is this whole dynamic, and we had a similar thing with the exchanges with the Houthis a few months ago. This is all interlinked. The epicentre is Gaza. And this is why it's a bit problematic to hear Western politicians pointing at Iran and saying don't escalate. Because Israel's attack on Gaza has been a massive escalation compared to what happened on the 7th of October. The Americans and the British have supported that. The attack on the consulate in Damascus, that's a huge escalation. That's sovereign territory. Incredibly provocative. The British and the Americans have effectively said, they've shrugged it off and said, we'll back you to the hilt, notwithstanding the fact that you did that. So they're enabling this escalation on the Israeli side. And escalation is a dynamic between Israel and Iran and others as well. If you're feeding it on one side, you can't then wag your fingers at other people. So if they want to play a positive role, the British and the Americans, they're going to have to put more pressure on Israel. And by pressure, I mean not talk that has nothing backing it up. I mean, pulling back on arms sales, diplomatic support, because if you just talk but provide those things, you might as well not be talking.
Yeah, Sunak today was talking of further diplomatic measures, more talking, along with fellow G7 leaders, expressing solidarity with Israel, but again, also underlining that they want to prevent further escalation. How much is Israel listening at the moment to its Western allies? You know, we heard that President Biden and Benjamin Netanyahu hadn't really spoken since President Biden's more or less said, enough is enough now. And it's only because of what happened with regards to Iran over the weekend that a dialogue began again. What is the influence on Israel at the moment, particularly from the UK side? Is there any?
There is. The thing is that Israel listens to the whole message. They listen to what their allies tell them, and they also take on board what their allies concretely do. If you're saying to Israel, you must stop hitting civilian targets, you must let the aid in, but also you're saying, if you don't do that, we'll continue providing you with arms, we'll continue to defend you on the UN Security Council. All Israel hears is verbals, but nothing backing it up. Fundamentally, they will continue to support us, so we will carry on. The only way Israel will listen is if it's backed up with action. And the fact is that the balance of power between Israel and the US is obviously sitting with the US. The US provides them with the majority of their arms, diplomatic support that they need. If you pull the plug on that...
What does it change then for the US to withdraw some support, to take that action rather than words that you're talking about?
When Biden feels a political pressure domestically, which is coming in the form of, you know, demonstrations on the streets, in the US primaries, lots of, you know, just uncommitted vote coming from people who want to send a message to him, domestic support in the, opposition in the US, and this could happen as a result of what's happened in the last sort of 24, 48 hours. There could be diplomatic pressure from Arab states as well, saying, look, we're on the brink of regional war. We dodged a bullet just now with this latest exchange. You need to put pressure on the Israelis to stop this. I think a combination of those two things, if the Americans pull the plug on this, it will be because of some combination of those two things, I suspect.
And David, how much does what's happening in the region at the moment, particularly with what's happened over the weekend and Iran attacking Israel, an unprecedented attack, how does this resonate in the UK? How do you think people living in the UK are seeing it? Because they're looking at war in the Middle East. We heard about the nerves in the region and the ripple effect around the world. People looking at this and thinking, what is unfolding here? What are we on the edge of? How's it resonating here in the UK, do you think?
I think it's the sort of thing where you get a notification on your phone and see hundreds of drones heading towards Israel from the US, from Iran, sorry. And it's the sort of thing that makes you worry, makes you panic. You know that it's going to, you know, it could potentially be a huge cost in human life. And also disruption to energy supplies, which can affect you and your own day-to-day life. So I think people are on edge generally as a result of the world situation. And this is the sort of thing that makes people worried even more. There seems to be general popular opposition to the British and American support for Israel at this moment. That's been building for the last 6 months because of how bad things have got. And this can probably feed into that. People saying, look, enough is enough. Can you not just call a halt to this?
Yeah.
So.
Well, Dr. David Ware, really good to get your insight tonight. Thank you so much for joining us on the UK Tonight. I'm sure we will speak again. We watch and wait for what Israel will do next. We appreciate your time. Thank you. Well, today's developments from the Middle East, sure to feature, of course, in tomorrow's newspapers. Our extended press preview and news review coming up tonight from 10:30 with tonight's news and tomorrow's headlines. Joining us in the studio, joining Anna Botting, will be the political editors of both The Sun and The Guardian, Harry Cole and Pippa Crerar. Meanwhile, still to come here on the UK Tonight, we're going to be discussing the rise in tragedy chanting at football matches. This is as Liverpool marks 35 years since the Hillsborough disaster. Also, a suspected tornado hits homes in Staffordshire. Stay tuned to see what it does to this street. And from carrots to ancient coins, how a harvest helped a detectorist find a huge haul in Fife.
Mandatory evacuation, you must leave!
For many people, Harvey is far from over. Christchurch has been changed forever by what happened here.
There was a river of blood coming out of the mosque. That's a scene that you don't forget.
Ida has certainly left its mark on New Orleans.
It just feels heartbreaking.
We help you understand the world with us. We are standing on the supply line right into the heart of America's opioid crisis. I've reported from around the world and around the UK. Are you trying to run me over, Sir Philip? No, go away. Look like it, sir. Will you respond to those who've made accusations, Sir Philip?
Can you go away?
Joe Biden knows the celebrations are over, and this is a country in crisis.
You don't want to be remembered this way. You always want to be remembered as something positive.
It is almost impossible to predict where these fires will go next. This gives you an idea of the strength of those winds, strong enough to bend and twist metal.
You regret the tweet, Gary?
There's no sign, publicly at least, of either side being willing to give ground. How do you reassure the public that all of these mistakes wouldn't be made again? I'm Greg Milam, and I'm Sky's Chief North of England correspondent.
Now, today is the 35th anniversary of the Hillsborough disaster. 97 people died following that tragedy at the FA Cup semi-final between Liverpool and Nottingham Forest on the 15th of April, 1989. Well, this morning, players and staff from Liverpool Football Club laid wreaths at the Hillsborough Memorial at Anfield. The city then fell silent at 6 minutes past 3. Well, that was the time that the match was stopped, when the horror of what was unfolding behind the goal at Sheffield Wednesday Stadium became apparent. As another year passes, unfortunately, cases of tragedy chanting are on the rise. That's when opposing fans use a disaster like Hillsborough to elicit a reaction from their rival fans. The rise is inexcusable, but perhaps it's inevitable as new generations fill the stands, either too young to understand the event they're singing about, or perhaps not even alive when it took place. Well, joining me now, Chairman of the Hillsborough Survivors Support Alliance, Peter Scarf. Peter, thank you so much for joining us on the UK Tonight. On this 35th anniversary to talk about this subject, tragedy chanting on the rise. Who is doing it? And more importantly, why is there a rise in this?
I feel it's a lot to do with the success of Liverpool FC over the last few seasons under Jurgen Klopp, because obviously Liverpool weren't so successful in the several years prior, and I don't know. I think it's probably obviously the success of Manchester City as well, and obviously there was the success of Chelsea before that. And the fans are just, I don't know, they're just using it as a weapon against us. And it's so painful to hear, and the damage that it's actually causing it's unbelievable.
Yeah, Peter, let's get personal, if we may, because you were at Hillsborough. You were there on that day 35 years ago. You have listened to this kind of chanting. What effect does it have on you? Because it's not just words, is it?
No, it's extremely painful. It picks the scab off the scars, and the families themselves, they've never been able to mourn or grieve properly because this is a continuous thing. They've not been able to move on with their lives, and as survivors, we've never been allowed to heal and move on ourselves. It's constant persecution. It's not just on the terraces; it's also on social media. And it's horrendous to be put through that. Imagine spending £50-60 to go to a football match and then be mocked about the death of 97 and called a murderer. It's absolutely shocking.
What do you want to see done?
I've actually raised this before. I think it should be education, and one of the suggestions I've made is some sort of an awareness course where people are actually sat down and, they have to learn about the Hillsborough itself, and of course the exoneration that we had, the independent panel report, and answer questions. The banning someone from a football match isn't enough, because if you ban them, someone else will go in their ticket. If you try and educate them first, then it should stop. And of course, I feel that ex-players, Jamie Carragher's the only ex-player who called the hate chants out at a football match. And I feel that the likes of Gary Neville, who's got a huge influence for Manchester United, and then of course you bring ex-players of these teams and get them to speak and try and eradicate this, because you just wouldn't believe the damage it causes. The sleepless nights, the re-triggering, the nightmares. It makes our job so much more difficult.
Peter, how much support do you have from clubs? Because, as you said, you will know what football clubs, what opposing fans will sing these chants. You know what fixtures that they're going to be brought up at. What kind of cooperation are you having from rival clubs in doing what you're talking about, educating fans, calling it out? Because it's all well and good getting the police involved, but like you said, it's influential figures, players, the clubs that have the real influence and the chance to change things, to stamp this out.
Yeah, I mean, I think the clubs should do more, and we're working with LFC. They've been fantastic. We're in contact with Nottingham Forest now, and we're going to be working with them too. So, fingers crossed we can at least start there and then work our way up. I mean, obviously, the Football Supporters Association are working with Manchester United. I've done a little bit with Manchester United too. And although we faced them in the FA Cup and the hate chants were horrendous, but when we faced them in the Premier League, it was a lot less. And we didn't get the murderer's chants, which is the most painful of all of the chants. But it is starting to make a difference, but it's still not enough.
And Peter, as I was talking about, as I was telling the viewers that I was going to be speaking to you, it's the younger generations who probably weren't even alive when the Munich air disaster happened, have only heard about Hillsborough, you know, through relatives, through the press. They don't understand it. Yet they're the ones that are continuing this really ugly legacy. How do you bring that up? Because, you know, you go to football matches and you do see younger fans. I've had experience of it myself, copying their parents, the older fans around them, whether that's their behaviour or the singing. How do you reach them?
School, education. We've got to get into the classrooms and start educating the children. And the teachers need to be educated on it too, so that they can continue to educate the children after we've visited the school. It has worked. We have spoken to a couple of schools. We're hoping to be starting work with another school as of this week. And then hopefully we can get across not just schools in Merseyside, but start covering the Northwest, start going into Manchester and surrounding counties. And, one day we'll get into the schools in the London clubs and educate them on it. But we have an education pack. It's something that can be sent to a school for teachers to obviously deliver to their children.
Well, Peter, I really appreciate you taking the time today to talk about your own personal experience and how it makes you feel. And I know it still hurts, and like you said, it will do for so many other fans and their families. Peter Scarf, Chairman of the Hillsborough Survivors Support Alliance, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time on the UK Tonight.
You're welcome.
Well, still to come here on the programme, we are going to be live in the House of Commons. This is for the latest round of parliamentary ping-pong, as it's been called, over the Rwanda Bill. And we'll have the latest for you from Staffordshire, where a suspected tornado sent a caravan tumbling. Hello, welcome back to the UK Tonight. Now, if you feel a sense of déjà vu coming on here, you are not alone, because MPs are voting again tonight on the Rwanda plan. The bill is back in the Commons tonight after its latest defeat in the Lords just before Easter to kick off the latest round of what's been called parliamentary ping-pong over this plan. Let's bring in Sky's chief political correspondent, John Craig, who is following this particular ping-pong match for us in Central Lobby. Where are we at tonight so far, John?
Well, where we are at is that any minute now you're going to hear the division bell and MPs are going to start voting, because Michael Tomlinson, the illegal immigration minister, is just closing the debate. A little earlier he said that the entire passage of the bill should prevail. We simply can't allow amendments that provide for loopholes which would perpetuate the current cycle of delays and late legal challenges to removal. So what's going to happen in a minute? They're going to start voting. 6 votes we're expecting. 5 Lords amendments being chucked out by the Commons. There'll be big majorities, no rebels on this, on the Tory side. Not expecting any anyway. Then tomorrow it'll go back to the Lords. Now, tomorrow in the Lords, in the latest stage of the ping-pong, we are expecting their lordships to pass perhaps 3 or 4 amendments and send it back for Wednesday. So what's likely to happen then? What's been happening so far is that the government's been losing vote after vote after vote in the Lords. About 30 or so Tory peers have been abstaining up to now, and that's cost the government dear in important votes. But they may well back the government tomorrow. We are expecting, though, the Lords to send it back again tomorrow. Probably Wednesday's the day when the bill will become law, or perhaps Thursday, later in the week anyway. Now, what does all this mean? Well, it means that the government will hope to get some flights off the ground to Rwanda. Earlier today, there was a Commons committee with a top civil servant from the Home Office, that's Sir Matthew Rycroft, was saying that once the bill gets royal assent, the PM or the Home Secretary will announce the next stage. Now, for weeks and weeks and weeks, Rishi Sunak's been saying flights taking off in the spring. Not saying that anymore because of all the delays. They're now saying as soon as possible. But we are reaching probably, I'd hesitate to use the word climax to this because it's been a pretty long and slow process, but we are approaching the conclusion really over the next couple of days when this bill will become law. I thought I was going to bring you a division bell, but they're not voting yet. Michael Tomlinson is still speaking, but I promise you they are going to start voting any minute now. 6 votes. Government will win in the Commons. Oh, there we go. There's the division bell. So they are about to start voting. 6 votes in the Commons, which is that way. And then tomorrow, that way, the Lords will be voting. And then back to the Commons on Wednesday. That's why they call it ping-pong, obviously.
John, thank you so much. John Craig there with the division bell ringing. Well, let's discuss this in more detail now with Steve Smith, Chief Executive of refugee charity Care for Calais. Really good to see you tonight. Thank you so much for joining us here on the UK Tonight.
Hello, Sarah-Jane.
What plans are you putting in place should the Rwanda Bill be passed into law this week?
Well, it's going to be very difficult for us as a charity, I admit that right away, because, of course, this has already been through the Supreme Court. The Conservative Party has already overruled the highest court in the land, 5 top judges. It's already been back and forth to the House of Lords, and eventually, of course, the House of Lords will probably have to stop raising amendments. And so we see it being forced through. As a charity, how can we legally challenge that? And I imagine at this stage, our standing would be brought into question. So the best way of challenging it is on an individual basis. So for those that have been through the most appalling circumstances we can imagine, so torture, human trafficking, modern day slavery, potential mental or physical disabilities, those are the sorts of areas that we should be challenging this on, but it can only be done by the individuals concerned.
Who gets the letter informing them that they'll be on a flight to Rwanda?
I'm sorry, could you say that again, please?
Who will get a letter telling them that they're expected to be on a flight to Rwanda? What's the selection process? Do we know?
I thought that's what you said, and I thought I'd better just check because so many letters have been sent out. I think a year ago, 24,000 notices of intent had been sent out. So there's almost a deliberate obfuscation about this. There are so many letters out there, we don't know who's going to finally be selected. What we do know, of course, is that it's unlikely that the Rwandans can take more than 500 in the course of a year. So how's that selection process going to be done out of those thousands of letters that have already been sent? And I think there's going to be some deliberate silence about that to make it even more difficult to find out who's likely to be going, and therefore make any individual challenges that much more difficult to effect.
So that will make it difficult for you to find those who need help. You will be reliant on those who get a letter knowing where to turn to for help. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, pretty well. But having said that, of course, we are massively in touch with the refugee community in any case, because we have something like 800 volunteers supporting some 4,000 asylum seekers across hotels, on the Bivvy barge, in the Wethersfield barracks, across the UK, even as we speak. So there's quite a good communication network going on there.
Steve, perhaps you can explain something to me, because last week on the show we had an extended report from our communities correspondent Becky Johnson into the broken asylum system. She was up in Hull speaking to people who have been seeking asylum for years. She spoke to one woman who'd been trying to be granted asylum here in the UK for the last 18 years. And when a claim is rejected, the claimant isn't forcibly removed. They're sent a letter asking them to leave voluntarily. And she was speaking to many people who simply didn't. They stayed in the UK under the radar. They would appeal. By the time that appeal was rejected, they'd find grounds to apply again. How is this going to be different? How is the Rwanda Bill passing into law going to break that chain?
It's going to make no difference at all from my point of view. When you speak to people in Calais, most of them haven't even heard about the Rwanda plan. And when we're only talking about, say, 500 maximum individuals going in the course of 1 year, and we're talking about maybe 30,000 coming across in small boats, if you've been through war, torture, persecution, and all those other horrendous things, you're surely going to take the risk because you have no other choice. And you know, I guess I would go back to, we don't talk about the start point of this. We only talk about the end point. We only ever look at people landing in rubber boats and shambling up beaches. We don't look at where they've come from. So think of Gaza and extrapolate that to Syria. Look at Afghanistan. Look at those individuals in the Afghan National Army who supported British troops. Look at those interpreters who supported British troops and now almost overnight have been deserted. Yes,
so, Steve, from what you think, if this is passed into law this week, it will be the status quo. Nobody who receives a letter could be forcibly removed from the country.
I don't, that's not quite what I'm saying. I think there will be an attempt to forcibly remove some. And last time this was on the books, of course, people were virtually wrestled onto the flight. There were lots of security staff. Some were self-harming. There were even suicide attempts. So, yes, I can foresee that. What I am saying is that it won't affect the status quo because such a minimal amount of people will be affected by it. They've been through such horrendous things to get here. They will simply continue. I think it's a gimmick.
Steve Smith, CEO of Care for Calais, really good to talk to you tonight as that vote on the Rwanda place takes place in the House of Commons. During the course of this conversation, we'll, of course, keep our viewers updated on how that vote turns out here on Sky News this evening. Now, residents in a village in Staffordshire are convinced that a mini tornado tore through their community this morning. The strong gusts sent trampolines, roof tiles and even a caravan flying into the air. It comes after stormy weather and high winds and heavy showers hit much of England, Wales and Northern Ireland today. Sky's Emma Birchley has more.
It arrived without warning. Wild winds whipping through the street at 6:30 a.m. Then this. A closer look shows tiles torn from roofs and a trampoline hurtling through the air. And almost as quickly as it came, it was gone.
It came through from the church up on Nutton Lane and it just swept straight through.
Steve Hemmings thinks his dad's caravan and van are probably write-offs.
Every single person that turned up here, they were just absolutely gobsmacked. They all had exactly the same reaction as I did. When they got down to this street, they just stopped, mouth open, and stood going, "What's happened?"
Clearing the glass from his driveway next door, Michael Waring was in no doubt what caused it.
It was definitely a tornado because Paul was by the front and I was by the back, and you heard it wind up like a hoover. And then it come across there, bounced off the house, which took a lamppost out.
The whole
trees in the garden.
The sight for some was clearly a shock. Trees felled, trampolines toppled. The emergency services were quick to arrive, making sure the remaining roof tiles were secure as the community and local housing association pulled together to clear up. 8-year-old Hunter headed out first thing with his little brother Ryder, who's 6, to investigate.
He woke me up and it just started raining a lot and I heard lightning.
And what did you see, Ryder? What did you see in terms of the lightning? You were telling me about that.
It was a purple lightning.
The path of the powerful gust was as narrow as it was short-lived, all over in under a minute. The Met Office is assessing whether it was indeed a tornado or simply an almighty gust of wind. Either way, it was an unexpected wake-up call for this small slice of Staffordshire. Emma Birchley, Sky News, Nutton.
Still to come here on the UK Tonight, how a carrot harvest helped a detectorist find a hoard of ancient coins dating back 500 years. And coming up in the sport, was this the defining weekend in the Premier League title race? We'll ask if anyone can stop Manchester City winning another title.
It's insane. Honestly, I've been a normal wave surfer, I guess we'll call it at this point, since I was 9 years old. So this crossover into the big wave surfing has been, just like a natural progression, I think, as I have grown as a woman and, just found a bit more power from within. It's just kind of led me to this big wave world, which is so many different things, adrenaline, just everything. I started training for big wave surfing, so it's a little bit different to normal surfing. Normal surfing, you obviously paddle, use your arms, and that's how you get into the waves. With this stuff, you have a jet ski with a rope on the back that you hold on to. It goes about 70 kilometers an hour, and you just hold on and you decide whether or not you're going to let go. So I started doing this in June, which was a pretty quick progression, and to surfing Nazare then in the November for the first time, and then I caught the big wave more towards the end of the season. I think probably the first time in my life that I felt that much pride, and just the reaction that I've had from the UK and just like women as a whole, and how they've kind of said that it's inspired them to go after their 60-foot wave and whatever that is. So I think as much as the wave felt incredible for me on a personal level, I think how it's kind of now evolving into lots of other things, and the kind messages and everything that I've had has been, it's altogether been just incredible. They basically have to have an object like in front. So usually with us, it's a jet ski that they can kind of guarantee that the jet ski is this size, and they can kind of like, so it's a certain amount of jet skis, so I don't know, like 12 jet skis. And that's how they do it. So for the Guinness record, it is, measured by jet skis, effectively. I'd been in sport since I was 15 years old, competitively, and I think that took a real hit on my mental health. I really struggled with an eating disorder, and back in the days when I first started surfing, it was over 20 years ago, there wasn't much representation for women, and we were definitely valued more for our appearance than our physical ability. So it's been a journey for sure. I took 4 years out of surfing just to kind of find who Laura was outside of that, and just pulled me straight back in. But as I said, it's been amazing to have the support this time round as an athlete.
Hello, welcome back. On the way, how a carrot harvest helped a detectorist's dreams come true. But first, Nick is here with the sport. Hello.
I can't match any of that. We just go straight to the carrots.
We'll wait for the carrots. We're going to talk about the title race, shall we? Could have been a pivotal weekend, actually, Nick. Because, it could have been a decisive weekend. It was a three-horse race. Where are we at now?
Well, it is still a three-horse race. It's still very, very tight. It's only a couple of points separating Manchester City, who are now the leaders, and Liverpool and Arsenal. But defeats for Arsenal and for Liverpool, it did give the feeling that this could be, here we go, it's Manchester City again. No offence to Manchester City fans.
It felt ominous to all the other fans.
I mean, Arsenal thought it was going to be a great weekend for them when Liverpool lost earlier on and didn't really play very well against Crystal Palace. And then suddenly Arsenal found that they lost as well against Aston Villa very unexpectedly at home, and Mikel Arteta, the Arsenal manager, looking pensive. Arsenal fans likewise. Liverpool were even worse, completely outplayed really by Crystal Palace in the first half. Second half, Liverpool had loads and loads of chances, couldn't score. There's the only goal that did go in from Crystal Palace. So it feels like once more it's going to be Manchester City.
And the reason why it's ominous, because people go, hang on a minute, there's 6 games left. And like you said, Nick, it is so tight between those teams at the top. But City are masters at the final run-in, aren't they? They're ruthless.
They've done it so often. So if you've got that belief, that knowledge that you can do it because you did it last time, they're aiming to become the first team to win 4 top-flight titles in a row in England. Lots of other countries have that kind of thing. We haven't seen that ever happen. They've won 5 of the last 6. Their run-in doesn't look particularly hard. You look at the matches they might not win. Tottenham is the one that stands out because Tottenham are a problem for Manchester City. Otherwise, you feel they're not going to drop many points. It feels like City's title. But, as you say, six games to go. You never know. I wouldn't put any money on anybody, frankly.
Definitely not.
But there is football going on tonight as well, and it's quite startling, actually. Have a look.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality. Getting more people more active. Live life with Vitality.
Well, I want to know how sustainable you are, Sebastian, because you're only 36. You've only been out the Formula One for a year and a bit. Are you potentially on the driver market for next season?
Well, potentially I am, because I haven't got a drive. But the question is, am I looking for one? I think it depends on the on the package. I retired from Formula One not to come back, but I also did say that you never know. So I think it still stands. Obviously, there's things that I miss, which is mostly the competition, and things that I don't miss. So yeah, that hasn't changed. Obviously, life is very different if you're not involved.
I just want to press you a bit on the now or never aspect of maybe coming back, because, as I say, the conditions, might they not offer you a better opportunity than maybe in the next year? And are you mindful of that as you make your decision?
For sure that the thoughts cross my mind. I'm thinking about it. Obviously, I retired not to come back, but I retired to retire. So nothing in this regard has changed, but you never know. Obviously, if a lot of things starting to move, because Lewis's move and now the potential of Max maybe, I don't know, pulling off a surprise. You don't know. So I don't know if the odd circumstance starts to happen or starts to open up, cockpit starts to open up, something to consider for sure.
I know you've had some conversations with Toto Wolff. If that Mercedes seat was offered to you.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality.
Now, we always like to leave you with something weird or wonderful here on the UK Tonight. And a carrot patch in Scotland has helped a detectorist's dreams come true. When Alan Baxter unearthed a medieval ring in a farmer's field in Fife, he knew there could be more, but he had to wait 4 years until the ground had been harvested. But what he found was worth the wait, a hoard of ancient coins dating back 500 years. It's the latest in a string of significant finds for Alan, who has now written a book on the secrets of his success. I'm very pleased to say that Alan joins me now. Alan, what was it like waiting for 4 years to get into that field with your metal detector?
Yeah, it was a long wait, but it was well worth it. We found an assemblage of 500 items, medieval, Bronze Age to medieval, which is the biggest assemblage of Bronze Age to medieval finds from the whole of Fife ever, from one area. The coins date to 1466 AD, and they're copper alloy. They're in pristine condition, and the last hoard of its type was found in Crossraguel Abbey in 1919. So it's a really, really rare hoard, a once-in-a-century hoard. It was found in a latrine, obviously, in a toilet. It was obviously been dropped with a monk, and the coins were found in the sediment of the latrine. And obviously my coins were in far superior condition due to the soil. So it was just amazing. Yeah, what a buzz. It was 52 of the farthings we found. But also in the general area, we found 2 John Balliol farthings, the only 2 found in the whole of Scotland. So they're extremely, extremely rare coins. we also found a Malcolm farthing. I think there's only 3 found in the whole of Scotland. So just exceptionally rare coinage on this site. We don't actually know if it's a hybrid site, if it's a settlement stroke market site, but it's clearly very significant.
Well, congratulations to you, because originally you found a medieval ring in that field, and because the farmer had a crop of carrots, that's why you had to wait the 4 years. Explain why, because it's to do with the soil, and obviously the carrots grow. You detected won't actually work, is that right?
Yeah, the medieval ring was found a wee bit away. It was maybe a field or so, but sometimes you have to wait because of the crops that are in stubble when they get harvested and they're too high and you can't get your metal detector right to the ground. So you just go right over the fines, you know. So the conditions have to be perfect. And the carrot harvest, the conditions were perfect. You were getting your metal detector right to the ground, which you actually need for medieval material because it's so thin. So you have to get your detector right to the ground for optimum conditions.
Yeah, it's probably why a lot of people are thinking, why can't I find that kind of stuff when I go out with my metal detector bought off the internet? It's, you know, you need the right equipment because it's quite deep and quite hard to find. But this is quite a secretive process. I know you're writing a book about it, but you normally have to be quite cloak and dagger, don't you, when you go into the fields and approach farmers to tell them what you're doing? Because you don't want anyone else to get there first.
Well, that's right. You've got a 50-50 chance of getting the permission. It just depends, you know, on your luck at the time. If somebody else is detecting the land, or if the farmer's actually wanting a metal detectorist in the land. So it just depends on your luck, you know.
And you have to convince them you're going to find a big haul because you tend to split the money, right?
Yeah, I've got an agreement with my landlord. It's 50-50 on my fines, yeah.
Oh, I can't see how they can say no. You do all the work and you split the proceeds. Brilliant. Well, listen, Alan, congratulations. Well done to you and good luck with the book. Really good of you to talk to us here on the UK Tonight. Thank you so much. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Right, let's take a quick look at the weather, shall we? There's a stiff northerly wind keeping it cool and unsettled over the next couple of days, although it will be drier than it has been today, but it looks like it's settling down to end the week. There's going to be a windy evening, plenty of showers in the northwest and moving through central Britain. The UK will see those showers spreading into the southeast for a time tonight, but inland areas will see the showers fading away later, leaving just a scattering near England's eastern coast. Ireland can expect more widespread showers, although most places will miss them. It's going to turn quite chilly under clearing skies, but the stiff wind will limit any frost to sheltered Scottish glens. Many places dry with good sunny spells tomorrow morning, but Ireland, Wales and southwestern and eastern England will see some blustery showers. That's all from the UK Tonight. You can catch up on the highlights on our webpage. Just scan the QR code on your screen. Coming up next, it's The World with the Alda Hakim live from Jerusalem.